Good day, great day, grand day to you all. Welcome back on another segment of Dr. TSA Series, a spiritual discussion. My next guest here today is Eliza. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome to our set here outside here in nature. And thank you for stopping in on a very short notice.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Do you have any questions for me today?
I guess we were just talking a bit about parenting, and I guess if you just wanted to share some of your thoughts about, thoughts about parenting and how different styles of parenting can kind of, enhance or hinder a child's development.
So when you say different styles of parenting, I automatically go back to what I've been taught in school. Like, there are different styles of parenting, but the question really becomes, what is the style required for the soul that you're raising in that moment? Like, we can, so many people can give us ideas and suggestions on what that particular child needs, but it's up to the child and for the parent to be listening to what the child needs in that moment or how they need to be guided. Children come with their own instruction manual internally, but it's up to us to really understand what that manual says. Manuals are written in so many different languages. What language is your child speaking in? And so it's up to us to be able to learn from the child in that regard, in terms of what it is they need for us to help and guide them along this journey that we call life. So it's not, we always hear children don't come with a manual, right? And we go through all of these challenges and things like that with them. We really have to learn to listen, to open up our spiritual ear and really see and feel what that child is saying to us, so that we can guide them appropriately and teach them, because they're not ours, right? We can't. Our default is how we were parenting, but we all know that that's not always the best. So yeah.
Just today I was listening in the car to a talk, and they were talking about even adults, if you're around children, like being childlike. And I know in the Bible there's teachings about being like a child, and in the car today that resonated with me fully, because so many things are going on, and I don't watch the news or listen to the news, and I was just walking around in like a bliss for the week. And then a friend of mine yesterday was like, "Oh, did you know that this happened and this happened and this happened?" I'm like, "No." I was like, "I guess maybe do I need to know that?" And I realized that I was very comfortable purposely not paying attention to what was going on. And I remember just thinking yeah, man, I'm clueless. And then I go, fast forward to today, I'm listening to that talk, and I was, they were talking about being childlike and just how children can absorb what's going on in the world, things around them. They might be aware, but they just come and they just deal with it in a different way. So, that just stuck with me. And I realized that I was kind of being childlike this week in a good way, because I wasn't even aware. And then even when I became aware, I'm like, oh, well, it's not affecting me. So, there's a lot, I think, that we can learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I hear to be childlike again, I'm very silly. Those who are very close to me know I'm silly. I can laugh, enjoy a joke. I'm just very, very silly. And how we allow information to kind of pass our mental borders and to affect us really depends on how you and I perceive what's happening. And yes, there's a lot going on around us, but how and what is it that we need for us to be greater, for us to grow, for us to shield our emotional bodies and shield our mental bodies? And how much really is it for me in this moment to be affected by it in order for us to do something about it? And you talked about not watching TV. For the past 2 years, there's been a constant repetition of certain things on the television day in and day out, what do you think that does to the mind? And it takes us out of the moment and into what's happening all around us, and forgetting that we have this internal space within us that we are responsible for. Yes, it's okay to be aware. Like you said, kids may be aware of something going on outside, but they keep going, not allowing it to affect them internally. And as adults, that's how we ought to be, because those things affect our emotional being, our spiritual being, our mental being. And it's by design that there's so much repetition of a certain kind of media, of a certain kind of reporting, to affect and to bring one into a state of fear as opposed to a state of being. And the state of being is more vital. The state of being is more vigorous. The state of being is more pure. The state of being is more creative. The state of being is so vigorous, and it's creative, and it's just powerful, as opposed to a state of existing and just listening to something over and over and over again. And so getting back to the state of being is key.
And do you think that do you think the goal is to take us out of, like our higher self, like when...
I know exactly what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. And for me to say on this platform, if it's a goal, I can't answer, right? Or I won't answer, right? However, it has its place for its agenda. And where I live through and live in is the state of constantly becoming more and more aware of who I am, so that I am more happy, more at peace, more one with consciousness, and constantly evolving. Whereas if I'm doing something over and over and over and over again, where does that lead? Right? Yeah, stagnant. Yeah. Exactly.
I think, and that for me, I do feel that I'm able to, maintain a little bit more peace, because I'm not so consumed by, what's going on. And, I'm on social media and people will say, oh, it's a terrible time to be in America, or a terrible time to be alive. And I'm like, I feel pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty good. I'm doing okay. And I think, when you have a little bit more of, peace within you, and you're a little bit more connected, it sometimes makes it easier to...
Yeah, and you say that, and some people will say, well, how selfish can you be? Or how... It's not about selfish. We each have a role to play. We all can't run to Ukraine. We all cannot. There are people who are designed or who are meant to go there and help. There are people who are designed to go and help with the overturn of Roe versus Wade right now, or Wade versus Roe. Like, there are people to go out there and to march and to fight our... We cannot be every place at every time. What is my role in this moment on how I can affect change on the highest level without physically having to go to these places to make or bring forth change? There's a place and time for everything, for everyone. I have to answer the call of what's within me in that moment. And we get lost into wanting to help all of these causes. What about the internal cause?
What's the difference? Like, what do you think is, how do you feel is the difference between knowing, what the call is? Because you can be bombarded with a lot of things and then have all of these thoughts and, emotions.
So that I feel the key is, what is driving you internally versus externally? The internal call is the first call we have to make, or the first call we have to answer. The external call is secondary. But many people in society have that in reverse. We're answering the external phone call or the external phone as opposed to the internal phone. And so living by what's inside of us, living by our truth is the first and foremost our responsibility, my responsibility, rather than what other people think is urgent. What you may feel is urgent in the moment is not urgent for me. And that's what we lose track of.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
All right. No rush.
But I mean, if just thinking about with my children, you said what could be somebody else's urgency might not be, and that's definitely something that I learned with them on my end, and I'm trying to teach them as well. So there are times, and it happens with all of them, that they want our attention like right away.
Right away.
I can't. Then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, actually, let me stop and pay attention to you. And then there's something that I get from them that I'm like, oh, okay, well,
exactly.
That was the important thing that I needed to do.
Exactly. What is the call in the moment? What is that you're supposed to be responding to in that moment? Is what you got going on more important? You have this one that's dependent on you. And if it's something that can be dealt with in another moment, how do we relay that information to them in a way that they can understand in a moment that mommy deal with this because of this, that, or the other, and then mommy will attend to, or no, what mommy has going on can wait a minute, this seems to be more pertinent, or the call of the moment that I need to respond to.
And most of the time, especially if it's when I'm actually listening to them and hearing them, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, you actually had something for me, and I had something for you, and that was supposed to happen. So, but you can get so distracted with everything that you're doing, and, kind of have your head down in that tunnel vision of like, whatever it is, like I have to, attend to this. And then you're like, actually, that was what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And it's amazing how that awareness comes, and like, you feel it, right? You can't fight it. And so, that call in the moment, you can't fight. It's real. The question is, do we want to listen, or do we heed the call? Yeah, that's the question.
How do you grow that awareness and that connection? Like, how is that? How can a person work on growing that?
Being attuned with self. Allowing or investing in self. When we spend time on a skill, or when we spend time on a trade, we constantly are at it until we've mastered it. The same goes with us, especially when I'm helping people to really understand and learn who they are. It comes first with paying attention to that inside. As comfortable or uncomfortable it may be, allowing ourselves to feel what it is we are feeling and asking for guidance. I'm not saying it's a walk in the park. It's not. Sometimes it will have us in tears, but understanding that in that there's a meaning, in that it's necessary, giving ourselves time, cuddling ourselves, saying it's okay, or I did the best I could in the moment. How can I do better? And putting that out there, investing in myself the same way we've invested in our children. We're the first child that we need to take care of after, grown and after turning 21. Our parents are not raising us anymore.
We're still growing too.
We're still growing too. So it's our responsibility to continue to grow ourselves. And the way we do that is to retrain ourselves on how to listen to our core. I talk about that core being the internal GPS, your intuition, your gut. It's a gut for a reason. It's there for a reason. It is your internal guide. Honoring that. Despite who says what, how they say it, who's going to feel what, your main responsibility is to yourself. And so spending time with that core and getting to know it and thanking it and acknowledging it will allow us to want to do it more, because we get not necessarily reimbursed, but we are validated even more. We validate ourselves even more. We're not, I don't want to say given gifts, but our spirit just makes us feel even more better because we've spent time with it. You know, it's an amazing process, but we have to be patient with ourselves and understand that it's a flow. It's an ebb and flow, and that's part of our nature. Ebbs and flows, the season, that's part of who we are. But being patient with ourselves throughout that process is one of the steps to cultivating a relationship with our core and honoring that first, because no one else is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
You have to do it. No one else is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
We have to do that for ourselves.
I feel like I'm getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do notice that sometimes I notice myself having certain emotions, and then I'm taking note of, oh, you were feeling anxious. And I used to just let that, kind of go rampant. And now I'm like, oh, I kind of acknowledge it, and then I allow myself to just figure out what it is and how, what is really making you feel this way right now, and then working through that better than I was, not.
And that's a big piece. And there you have it on another segment of Dr. TSA Series, a spiritual discussion. Thank you once again all for watching. Remember to click that thumbs up and subscribe. Also, remember you're loved. Namaste.